What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Halving Report podcast, episode 72, with myself, your host, Brad Mines. The price of Bitcoin is just over 19,000 US dollars, and there is about 550 days left until the next Bitcoin halving. We are seeing some of the most stable times for the most liquid and popular cryptocurrency, which of course is Bitcoin. Bitcoin has seen very little ups or downs in the past couple of months. Right now, Bitcoin comprises about 40% of all cryptocurrency, while Ethereum sits at 17%. Before we get to today's show, shout out to our partner at BitBuy. If you are Canadian and you haven't already, go to bitbuy.ca/halving for a free $20 in Canadian fiat after depositing your first $250, which can be used to purchase many different types of cryptocurrencies so quick and easily at bitbuy.ca/halving. Today, we welcome the CEO of Sazmining Inc, William Szamosszegi. Sazmining Inc is a sustainable Bitcoin mining platform for regular people. They host your miners under a fully managed renewable energy mining facility. William is super passionate about Bitcoin mining, and energy. So let's get right to it. Welcome to the Halving Report podcast, Will. Thanks for doing this today.
Yeah, thanks again for having me, man.
Yeah, so can we please start with an introduction for yourself and just maybe tell us a little bit about where you're from, a little bit about your background and how you got into cryptocurrency?
Yeah. Well, I feel like everyone who's in the industry, they come in initially being skeptical, but then after learning about the technology and everything else, you dive down the rabbit hole and you realize, wow, this is a massive paradigm shift. And I really started diving into it right before starting Sazmining. Sazmining, we started in January of 2018, and I'd started another tech company previously, and I had been getting curious about the technology as I was building that company. And I realized that, at the end of my life, I would regret it if I didn't go and get involved in some way, shape, or form. And so I ended up starting Sazmining in January of 2018. We had a small mining operation, actually initially doing GPU mining. We had mined some Ethereum, mined some Zcash. But then over time, after learning more and more about it, I realized, all paths in some way, shape, or form lead you to Bitcoin. And you realize that the killer application for blockchain technology is Bitcoin. And I knew that I wanted to focus in on it. So I initially helped, aside from the small mining operation, bootstrap the company mostly through our consulting and our mining operation, and had set up some very large potential sites out in Kentucky and North Dakota, but was unable to raise enough money and time to actually fully see those sites to fruition. And at the time, I had seen that, hey, we had all these customers calling up saying, hey, I want to mine Bitcoin, but I only got like $10,000, $50,000, $100,000. And as you guys know, if you only have that much money, it's really hard for you to start up an operation. So we realized, hey, we've got the podcast, the Sazmining podcast, we've got consulting, we've got connections to some of the biggest miners out there in the industry. Let's give the market what it wants. And what the market wants is you have a lot of people out there who you want to be able to begin mining Bitcoin, but you don't have many millions of dollars. You don't have the time to dive in and become a professional Bitcoin miner, and you don't have access to all these big public company CEOs who run mining companies. And so we ended up launching a platform earlier this year. So if you go on to Sazmining.com, you can actually go on, join the wait list, purchase your own mining rig, and in a few clicks, really become a Bitcoin miner. So we're really excited about that. We've got a hydro facility that is going to be onboarding customers into it in December this year. And I couldn't be more excited to be working on what we're working on here. And also outside of Sazmining, bring this product to market, being able to speak with other people and talk about Bitcoin. I'm fascinated by it. I think that eventually people are going to look back and realize how big of a paradigm shift this is and how important it is for the world. And I'll pass it back off to you, and I'm excited for this conversation.
Yeah, for sure. No, I appreciate that. And I will back it up on a couple of things. Just for some clarification, it sounds like a really ambitious project and something really good for the world. So just to clarify, then you started with GPU mining, but Sazmining is exclusively Bitcoin mining?
Yeah, exactly. Initially, actually, one of the reasons why we'd started with GPU mining, when I first got into this, I was enamored by the potential for blockchain technology. Why was I so excited about it? Well, I kind of drew the parallel between blockchain technology and the internet, right? So the internet is a new tool. Without the internet, you can't build a lot of the big companies you see today. We wouldn't be here on this podcast talking without the internet. You can't start a company like Amazon without the internet. And everyone today realizes the value. I think that you see a lot of parallels with blockchain technology in that way, where blockchain technology, it's a new type of technology that allows you to build new things. And so when I'd started Sazmining, I was really excited about blockchain technology, and I saw the use in being able to get involved through GPU mining and mining Ethereum. At that time, I was far down the rabbit hole with Ethereum and looking at different projects there. But yeah, at the end of the day, all roads lead back to Bitcoin.
So then, safe to say, the further deeper you got into this space, you became more of a maximalist.
Yeah, I think that the term maximalist, I've actually heard a couple different definitions, so it's kind of hard to exactly know what that means. But the way that I view it is, I think Bitcoin is today the killer application for blockchain technology. Do I think that there's potential for blockchain technology to be used in other industries and be applied to make the world better? I completely think that that's still the case. But in terms of traction today, I think that Bitcoin's got its product market fit, and its product market fit is sound money in the long run and store of value in the short run. And that I couldn't be more excited to work on anything else other than Bitcoin at this point in time. And at the end of the day, mining, you're at the crux of it, right? You're what makes Bitcoin possible. So when you hear all these people talking about why Bitcoin's so amazing, it's so amazing because of the features that it has, and it has those features because of the mining network.
And so, say I'm a customer of yours. I want to get involved with Sazmining. What does that look like for me, and how much is the minimum to get started with you guys?
Yeah, the way we've priced it is it's the cost of a single mining rig. So if you want to start mining with us, you go onto the website and you can join the wait list with $100 deposit. It's kind of like the Tesla Cybertruck model. You can put down a small amount, reserve your spot. And one of the great things about this for you as a customer is that you don't have capital tied up for long periods of time. When we were building this product, we were thinking, what's the product that we would love to use, that we want? And the product that we want and that is best for customers is just having a deposit to hold your spot, but then collecting the money when we're actually placing the order, not just collecting it and letting this long lag time go by. Because time value of money in Bitcoin, as you know, it's important to make sure that you're maximizing your dollars every day. You got to stack sats some type of way.
So I'm purchasing the unit through you guys, and then it comes right to your facility. You guys set it all up for me. And where are you getting your energy from?
Yeah, great question. So the facility's out in Wisconsin. It's 100% hydropower. And at Sazmining, we're focused on renewable energy as well as carbon negative energy sources. So it's 100% hydro for this facility in Wisconsin. Yeah, that's going live for customers in December. So make sure you hop on that wait list.
Okay, so you guys physically own the machine. I'm a customer here. What guarantees do I have that that machine is actually mine at the end of the day? It's in your hands.
Yeah, that's a very important point that you brought up there is the ownership, right? We don't own the machine, you own the machine. We're helping provide the service to help you run it. So when you send over the money for your purchase of your miner, at that point, the miner becomes yours. We're just helping facilitate to make sure that your miner's up and running. The Bitcoin that your machine generates is being deposited directly into your wallet address. And so it's a way to get exposure, owning a mining rig, but then actually generating and having, like fresh, newly minted Bitcoin.
And, as we know, the Bitcoin mining is super competitive nowadays. And, that's why, companies like yours exist, right? And, how are you guys preparing for the future of mining? I know, product life cycle of these machines aren't very long. What do you guys have to do to stay competitive?
Yeah, well, that's a very important point, right? It's a very competitive industry. You need access to, if you don't have bulk orders, then you're not going to be able to get as good of pricing. If you don't have those relationships, you're not going to be able to access the best pricing. So one way is we help procure miners at good prices, right? The second is the actual energy cost, right? So if you go and you try and mine on your own, you don't have the ability to get as cheap of energy as a company that's focused on running on 100% hydro. And then finally, just running your machine properly, right? You want to be able to have your machine run by experts and people who understand how to run facilities rather than going and, running a machine that could break down very quickly if it's not taken care of properly. And so these are all things that we're paying attention to, trying to make sure that we're maximizing uptime, because if your machine's not running, then it's not generating Bitcoin. So we just try and we've tried to align the incentives where we make money when the customer makes money. And so we pass through things that cost, and the way we make money is keeping a percentage of the total Bitcoin mined by that machine. And that's 15% of the Bitcoin mined.
You guys take 15%?
Yeah, we keep 15% of the Bitcoin mined. So 85% is deposited into your Bitcoin wallet, 15% is deposited into our wallet, and then we pass through the mining rig and the power it costs. I actually recorded a podcast earlier and was uploading something so maybe it's taken energy away from this. So I will.
You got to prioritize the Halving Report, man.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. That's my bad. Hopefully this will be better. I can control that. I can't control the weather. So hopefully the weather cooperates here, but now everything's closed.
Awesome, man. So, obviously the halving is a big deal around here. How is the halving going to affect Sazmining, and are you going to make any adjustments?
Yeah, that's a good question. So the halving, I believe it's coming up in May of 2024 is the expected date of the halving. And the best way that you can prepare for the halving is just at the end of the day, preparing the economics properly, right? So you see a lot of miners who got involved when the price was very, very high with mining rigs. And so people were paying as much as like $100 a terahash. Right now, the mining rigs price has come down significantly. And depending on exactly when the order for the miners gets purchased, you're looking at a mining rig in the 20s in terms of dollars per terahash. So going back to your question with the mining, the halving, well, you need to get into mining at a good time. A good time to get into mining is when the price of the miners are low. Electricity costs, that's another big one, making sure that you've got a good low variable cost rate of power. Or a low fixed rate of power. You saw a lot of miners get burned by having variable costs. But right now, you can ask us or any other miner in the industry. They know that right now is a great time to get involved in mining. Much, much better time than, if you were getting involved when the price of Bitcoin was in the 40s. So yeah, the one final piece I will mention on this is you see a lot of the public miners that have made a lot of money. They got in at times similar to this. Riot had got in at a very good time previously in the last bear cycle. And the best time to get involved in mining is during the bear cycles when the price of miners are low.
For sure. What are your thoughts around Ethereum's proof of stake mining, the Ethereum merge? And as someone that is, revolved around this renewable energy and, zero carbon, what are your thoughts around the Ethereum reduction there?
Yeah, great question. This is one of my favorite topics. First off, I'm going to say that I'm going to have a completely different view than almost anyone else out there that is talking on this subject. But I believe that the truth is on my side, and they are incorrect with a lot of their beliefs. And the belief is that proof of work, it's good for humanity. It's good for the energy sector. Anyone who's deep in energy and understands what proof of work is and how it's involved in these networks, they know that proof of work is a huge value add. There's value to proof of work. A lot of people don't realize this, but many of the greatest inventors of all time tried creating a form of money that was tied to real world energy. People like Edison, Buckminster Fuller, all of them failed. Bitcoin is the first time in human history where you've found a way to tie real world value to energy, and that's because proof of work. Now, at the end of the day, Ethereum, they've got a different market that they're going after, right? They're not going for sound money, so maybe proof of work isn't necessarily necessary for their protocol, but at the end of the day, proof of work is very valuable to the energy sector. First off, seeing with proof of work the ability to add economics into bootstrapping energy assets. So what does that mean in practice? Let's say that you own a renewable energy project, right? Or you're trying to build a renewable energy project. Well, the economics of your project don't work in that wherever you're building it. Well, all of a sudden you implement Bitcoin mining's economics, and now all of a sudden you have a way to make your energy project economically viable. So that shows, and that's not just happening with renewable, it's happening with stranded power assets. Let's say that you own a power asset that is decommissioned, that is generating no energy. All of a sudden you add Bitcoin mining economics to that, and now you can bring that energy on, accelerate and build humanity's energy consumption. The big conversation now, though, is around how Bitcoin mining becomes carbon negative. So I'm not sure, have you talked about methane emissions on this podcast before? Like methane emissions for mining?
I might have one episode about it, but not overly in depth. So if you want to touch upon it, that would be awesome.
Yeah, so this is one of the most important conversations around Bitcoin mining today that you don't hear being talked about as much, just because it is very early. But when you look at solving global warming, the biggest problem is really methane in many ways. Methane over a 30-year time frame is 84 times worse in terms of warming for the environment. And then over a longer time frame, methane's 30 times as bad as carbon dioxide. So really, carbon dioxide's bad. I think we all agree on that. Everyone can agree on the fact that methane's much worse. The big problem today is that there's no economic incentive to capture methane. And so with Bitcoin mining, you actually have the solution to solving this methane problem. Instead of the methane going up and trapping heat in the atmosphere, you can actually capture that methane and use that methane for Bitcoin mining. And as this grows over time, more and more of the Bitcoin mining network becomes carbon negative. And so there's a lot of great research out there, like from Daniel Batten, Troy Cross, who's one of our advisors here at Sazmining, talking about how beneficial is Bitcoin mining is for combating global warming and lowering methane emissions. And at the end of the day, if you're a Bitcoin miner, you want cheap energy. The cheapest energy is wasted energy. Methane is wasted energy. Over time, you're going to see more miners going and using carbon negative sources. And then when you play that out, Bitcoin mining and proof of work becomes a massive carbon negative force to combat global warming and reduce methane emissions.
That was very well said, Will. Thank you. So you're saying that, so is there a place for, multiple algorithms and competing algorithms, but you're saying Bitcoin is not being replaced, then it still has its place as a very strong force. How much of Bitcoin mining right now is renewable, on the, conservative end?
Yeah, it depends on which report you're looking at. There are some reports out there that say that it's over 50%, and then one that says that has a lower renewable energy mix, I think, is the Cambridge report that I think put it somewhere in the 30s. So at the end of the day, it depends on which data set you're looking at. But going back to the other part of your question with these other types of algorithms, proof of stake with the Ethereum merge, I think that, everything at the end of the day has to be tied to value, right? Like real world value, not just like some type of Ponzi or something else. And I do think that there's real world value in these other networks as well as in Bitcoin, of course. But there's not real world value in all these other networks. So at the end of the day, with different protocols, different algorithms and their tokens, you got to ask yourself the question is, okay, what is the purpose of this token? What's the purpose of applying blockchain here? And how are we going to design the protocol or tokenomics to solve this real world problem in a better way than it's being solved today? And, it's the same type of thing where we don't know exactly what the big killer applications are going to be. And maybe you do need proof of work. Maybe you don't need proof of work in order to solve that problem. In Bitcoin's case, you definitely need proof of work. In Ethereum's case, they've decided that they don't need proof of work in order to solve the problems that they're trying to solve with Ethereum. And so, I'm not going to sit here and say that I know more about the Ethereum Foundation or their goals or how the developers, the tools that they need to build on Ethereum. The one point that I'm coming at it from is that from the environmental perspective, proof of work is very beneficial for the energy sector, and proof of work is very beneficial for actually combating global warming and reducing the carbon footprint globally. So it's an important technology, and I think that it's one of the great things about Bitcoin.
Now, is all that natural incentive in Bitcoin and Bitcoin mining, and is that coming right from Satoshi, or is this something that's been added on since those days?
Yeah, the interesting thing about the Bitcoin white paper and just how the protocol functions is that naturally the incentives. Well, I'll play it out for you. Naturally, the incentives lead to this. So let's say that you're a Bitcoin miner. Well, you buy hardware. Like you were asking about like the design, like how Satoshi.
Oh yeah. If the incentive was built in right from the days of Satoshi, or if that was something improved upon on the protocol later on.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because it actually, the natural incentives were there from the very beginning. And so just to really outline that on why it helps the energy sector, I'll put you in the shoes of a miner, right? So let's say that you're a miner, you want to generate Bitcoin, right? Well, you want to minimize your costs. So you want to find the cheapest energy in the entire world. If you have 5-cent energy and someone else has 15-cent energy, then you're paying 1/3 in electricity to generate that same Bitcoin. So you're minting Bitcoin at a lower price. And at the end of the day, because of the difficulty adjustment, there's only going to be a certain amount of Bitcoin released in every block. Every 10 minutes, that block is going to have the same amount of Bitcoin, despite how many miners are competing for it. So you need the cheapest energy. So going back to the question, it's been in the design since the very beginning. The difficulty adjustment has made it so there's a perfectly competitive market there to generate that new Bitcoin, and you're incentivized to find the cheapest cost of power. You're also incentivized to find the cheapest miners. You're incentivized to keep the machines up and running as long as possible. There are all these incentives that were naturally built in from the beginning. And granted, you've seen improvements to the network in other types of ways with SegWit and Taproot and things like that. But the incentive to have the cheapest energy has been in there from the very beginning.
And what do you see in the mainstream news when it comes to energy used by Bitcoin? What is the narrative that's out there right now, and do you find it accurate?
Yeah, I think that the narrative in the mainstream is just completely wrong. I'm hoping that it's not intentional. But it's definitely just not researched, because what they're saying is that Bitcoin's bad for the environment, and then they go and use a straw man comparison where they compare the Bitcoin mining network compared to a country's energy usage. And they're straw manning the argument, and they're also assuming that Bitcoin has no value. In no other industry do you hear the conversation around energy talked about in the way that it's talked about with Bitcoin. No one's going and saying, oh, well, how much energy does your refrigerator use? How much energy was used in the factory where they used grid power that powered your shirt? There's like 30% of the energy used to make your shirt was from coal. There's no other way in which it's talked about in this way. And a lot of the people who are talking about it don't see the value in Bitcoin in the first place. And so it's everything at the end of the day takes energy. The question is are you willing to pay for it? I don't think that we're going to cut off your running water because it uses electricity or it uses like energy, right? You're not going to shut off and remove your access to heat or cooling or running or just light in general, you know? But
so then, sorry to interrupt. So then, like, what do you think draws all this criticism towards Bitcoin if it's not intentional? Are they just salty no coiners wishing they got in back in 2012 or something like that? Or what are your thoughts around that?
yeah, no, it's a good question. And I'm sure that there's there could be some salty no coiners in there for sure. But I think that there are different groups and different people who have a strong vested interest to attack it. One, if you're a competitor of Bitcoin, then it would be good to take that. If you view yourself as a competitor to Bitcoin, then you naturally would want to find an attack vector to attack Bitcoin for. So if you view yourself as an enemy, whether you're another blockchain, you might do that. Or if you are a beneficiary of the existing system where you see Bitcoin as a threat, you know, I think that you can make a strong case to see that Bitcoin dismantles a lot of the existing powers out there today. And I mean, it would make sense to lobby against it. So at the end of the day, you can draw conclusions and we can speculate as to why or which groups are the biggest proponents trying to push forward the narrative that Bitcoin mining is bad. But, you know, anytime you do something very disruptive, you're going to have strong enemies. And no, the existing powers today aren't going to just sit there and watch as something else goes and displaces them. You're going to try and attack it. And the easiest straw man argument you can make to attack Bitcoin today seems to be through this energy usage conversation.
Bitcoin with world reserve status, do you think this is feasible? And what kind of timeline would you see this happening in?
Yeah, great question. I completely think it's feasible. I think it's going to happen. The whole question is when, and that's where it gets a little bit more difficult. Just to really understand why, I think it's first important to understand how far Bitcoin's come in just such a short period of time. And in just over a decade, you've seen something that started as just an idea in a white paper, all of a sudden now being talked about by governments, being worth more than most currencies in the entire world. And why is that? It's because Bitcoin solves so many large fundamental problems. The big one just being, you look at how the central banking system works, right? If you have the ability to print money out of thin air with zero marginal cost, then whoever's in charge of that money printer is inevitably going to print it away. You've seen this with every government issued fiat currency in the past. This isn't new. You just look at the trends, you look at what's happened. It's happened 100% of the time. Are we suddenly going to believe that this is not going to happen anymore? So if you make the assumption that that's going to continue to happen and that the trend that has a 100% hit rate is over over a prolonged period of time is going to continue to happen, well, governments are going to print it away. That value and the dollars are going to lose value and they're going to flow into things that can protect the value. So naturally, what you're seeing and you've seen in recent times is the reserve currency. People print away their currencies. These random currencies fail. Bolivar, like bye-bye, you know, insert country who's printed their currency away. That goes into a currency that can protect it. That could be the reserve currency. If your money's being printed away, your life force is disappearing, you're going to try and protect that. Okay, well, dollars are reserve currency. You go buy dollars. Oh, you learn about Bitcoin, you realize you should definitely buy some Bitcoin. So then you buy Bitcoin. More and more currencies will collapse over time, as they always do, and more value will be put into something that's reliable. And I think you can just look at it, look at the price of Bitcoin, look at how that's performed. I mean, it's ridiculous, right? The amount of money and increase in value that Bitcoin has had over like the past 10 years even. So I think that right now you're still seeing that Bitcoin's at just the beginning, and you just follow the incentives, play it out over a long time horizon, and Bitcoin naturally becomes the global reserve asset. If you're some other country, are you going to watch your reserves get commandeered by for example, the US government that'll just say, hey, actually, you don't own that money anymore. We're not recognizing that, taking the wealth of other countries. I think that, you're going to see people naturally just realizing, hey, you can protect your wealth in this decentralized asset that no one in the world can suddenly just, flip a switch and print more of, or flip a switch and take away your holdings. And, in terms of the specifics on the time frame, I think that people will view Bitcoin as the global reserve asset by 2035. And if you think about it, the last Bitcoin's being mined in the year 2140. So I think it'll happen faster than a lot of people believe.
What about regulation in America? Where do you see it right now, and where would you like to see it to go?
I think that you're seeing the countries playing a very interesting, like, geopolitical game of chess right now, and they're doing it with a lot of things. It's not just Bitcoin, not just crypto, but I think with Bitcoin, it's very, very interesting because you have Bitcoin, then you have the Bitcoin miners, and you've got just so many different decisions that you have to make. So I'll take it one by one. First off, with Bitcoin, right, or with Bitcoin mining. Well, with Bitcoin mining, you have a choice. You could ban it. You saw China ban it.
Mm-hmm.
Did it stop Bitcoin mining in China? No, there's a black market for Bitcoin mining in China today. It's one of the biggest Bitcoin mining industries in the entire world. So, okay, you could try and ban it. There's still going to be a black market. You're not going to stop it. It's just not feasible to. But let's say that you decide to do nothing. Well, if you decide to do nothing, Bitcoin miners, if they see cheap energy there, they'll make your grids more resilient. They'll invest in communities. They'll hire people. They'll produce value in your country or your state or wherever you're located. Well, that sounds pretty good. If you're a politician, you want more economic activity. You want donors, lobbyists, people who have money in crypto to be able to help you with your campaign. So the incentive there is, hey, you actually probably want to support it. Well, let's say that you've got other lobbyists that really don't want you to support it. Well, you could stay away and not touch it, but at the end of the day, the mining's still going to happen. It's just going to happen somewhere else. And then the places where it happens, it's going to make their community stronger. They're going to make more money. They're going to have people with bigger pockets to help push forward those campaigns. So at the end of the day, you're not going to stop it by not adopting it. And you'll benefit from adopting it. So the incentives there are leading people, and you're seeing it. You're seeing more people adopt Bitcoin mining and try to be friendly to it. So that's one. On the Bitcoin mining side, you've got the incentives to adopt it, and I think you're going to see more people adopting it. On the Bitcoin regulation side, I think it's difficult to regulate Bitcoin. And why is that? I don't think that all politicians really realize this, but Bitcoin is not like other assets, right? If you go and you buy a house, like let's say you own a house, right? Well, if the government decides to tax it, you're going to have to pay that tax, right? It's not like if they go and want to take your house, they'll take your house, and there's nothing you can do about it. If they come and try and take your Bitcoin, they don't have the private keys to your Bitcoin. They can't really take your Bitcoin. If they suddenly try and start taxing Bitcoin in a completely unfair way, that Bitcoin can in a second be sent to some other place in the world, some other area, and there's nothing that they can do to take that. It's not where you're stranded. If you have a $10 billion building and you own that, you can't suddenly snap your fingers and have that $10 billion building in some other country. You can't suddenly snap your fingers and sell that $10 billion building on an open exchange. If you own $10 billion in Bitcoin, you can liquidate that Bitcoin same day. You can send that Bitcoin to a completely different country in the same day. And so are you really going to sit there if you own $10 billion of Bitcoin and then let it get taxed away? Or are you just going to be like, okay, I'm going to have to live in a different country now? I'm not saying that like someone should go and take advice or do it, but those are the incentives. It's like what do you think is going to happen if you're a politician and you want to put those restrictions on Bitcoin? It's going to leave the country. And so then going back to, if you're in that seat and you're a politician or you're regulating Bitcoin, what's the smart thing to do? Well, the smart thing to do is to actually play nice and not take advantage of your citizens who own Bitcoin. You want to keep the wealth and you want to keep the smart people within your country, within your borders. And in order to do that, you have to, you can still tax it, but you want to employ a smarter approach that is not so heavy-handed, because then it'll leave. And I'll just draw one last example with this, like with, for example, California, right? In California, I'm sure that there are a lot of people who wish that they could just take their value out and not have their value taxed away with high taxes. But it's very hard for you to move your house out of California. If you had $10 million in Bitcoin in California, you can move that out instantly.
Right. Which is obviously, far superior and something mankind has never seen before. And we're going to see how that plays out. Right. And, this ever fascinating globalization, that's happening right now. What are your thoughts about the way that El Salvador has ushered in Bitcoin legalization?
Yeah, it's a good question. I've spoken with some people who've been there, who've interacted with it. And at the end of the day, I think that just like anything, if you're an early adopter in something that's big, that is going to produce a lot of value, then you're going to benefit from that. I mean, think about how much attention was put on El Salvador as soon as they made the decision to really come up with a Bitcoin strategy and get people to adopt it. I mean, it put El Salvador on the map. It put Bukele on the map, right? I mean, how many people would really know who the president of El Salvador is if it wasn't for the move that he made, right? I mean, name like the presidents of other Latin American countries, I mean, you can't really, right? And so look at MicroStrategy, for example, right? No one would know what MicroStrategy is or really who Michael Saylor is if it wasn't like he wouldn't have millions of followers on Twitter and be as famous as he is if it wasn't for him going and diving down and accepting Bitcoin. So I think that at the end of the day, the decision was smart. I think that, like what I said earlier, if you make that decision, like if you're El Salvador, you're going to have people who don't like that. You're going to have large enemies. I think it was the WEF, World Economic Forum, that I think took a stance, like I don't know how many months ago this was, but people aren't happy that they're doing this, but I think that it's smart that they're going down that path. And in the long run, so long as they can continue acquiring more Bitcoin, that over time, the people who live in El Salvador are going to be very happy about it. I mean, I personally know people who have money who are looking at, trying to potentially move there or trying to go and start something there. And you go and you adopt this technology, you're going to bring smart people there, or you're going to at least provide a strong incentive for people to go to your country.
What would you say to folks who criticize Bitcoin or don't want to buy it because they think it's directly correlated to the NASDAQ or the S&P 500?
At the end of the day, especially if you look at where we believe Bitcoin's going, like it becomes the global reserve asset, like eventually you're going to have exposure to Bitcoin in some type of way. Like, I mean, I'm going to be buying Bitcoin for a long, long time. The difference is when you get in, what price you're going to buy it at. And I think what's great about it is that it rewards the people who go and are open-minded and smart and willing to dive in and learn about the technology. And it kind of reminds me of that I'm not sure if it's necessarily a saying, but let's say that all of a sudden today, all the richest people in the world, you took away all their money. You fast forward 20 years and those same people are going to be very, very rich. I mean, it's the people who are smart that are going to go and build things and are going to go and try and create value in society. And, for the people who don't see that or who see it later, they're going to be buying in at a higher price and they're not going to benefit from it as much. The people who get in early, who recognize that value and take the time to learn about it, so they have the conviction to hold through the bear markets and invest in the bear markets, those are the people that you're going to see making a lot of money.
Absolutely. Will, what else do you like to do when you're not knee deep in Bitcoin mining?
Yeah, I really like to go to the gym. I think that it helps clear your mind, and I think that it's important to do stuff that's physical, just for not only mental health, but just like, you know, be, a lot of people do it through like meditation, which I also like to do. I think it's important. But I think that just going and doing stuff that's physical is very important. So yeah, I'd say working out, I enjoy that. I like hanging out with friends when I can. I like talking through ideas like this as well. I think that, doing podcasts and getting to talk about Bitcoin, or even if it's outside of Bitcoin, just ideas in general, I think are fun. So yeah, that's probably my main thing.
Awesome, man. Do you have any favorite books or resources in this space?
Yeah, well, the Halving Report. Yeah, no, the Sazmining podcast. No, but I mean, I think that there's some necessary reading material if you really want to start sinking your teeth in. I think the Bitcoin Standard is a great book. I mean, there are a ton of great books, just depending on like what you're trying to do. I think that the best thing that you can do for yourself or for friends is to get an Audible account. Or I guess I like listening and doing audiobooks, but just like if you prefer reading, then just like getting some good books and giving those to friends, or helping get people down this rabbit hole. So I think the Bitcoin Standard is a great book. And a must read for anyone in the industry. So I would start there, and then really just finding ways to get involved with people who you think are good teachers. I really enjoy Robert Breedlove's podcast. I think that that's a great one if you're really trying to get like a philosophical understanding of some of these issues. Then that's one that I enjoy listening to a lot. But in today's day and age, you have so much potential research out there. There's so many people to learn from. So yeah, just going and consuming content and talking with people about it, you'll end up diving down soon enough down the rabbit hole.
Will, I'm going to open it up for you. If you have any final thoughts, questions for me, or words of wisdom you can give myself and my listeners. If not, maybe just let us know where we can follow you and learn more.
Yeah, in terms of a question, I'm curious as to what, because to preface the question, every single person that I talk to, because you have so much information out there, you have different views on like Bitcoin versus like these other blockchains and the whole ecosystem, how they interact. So the question that I'd like to ask you is, what are your thoughts on how all of this stuff progresses, right? Like, what's your thoughts on like Bitcoin versus like things outside of Bitcoin, and what are your views on like the future for both of these ecosystems?
Yeah, so I started off in crypto, over diversified, and got wrecked a little bit in the beginning when I got in like 2017, early 2018, when a lot of those projects, either disappeared or didn't come into fruition. And so I did become more of a maxi, and at least in allocation, and just like being financially conservative. I think buying Bitcoin is a safe play. I don't feel comfortable telling new people to come in and buy Dogecoin or any other of these popular coins that are just popular because the prices are going through the roof during a bull market. But so I think there's a place for competing blockchains and crypto projects, but I feel like Bitcoin is, we just seen Bitcoin hit new all-time high hash rates again, right? Like I feel like all the signs are just continuously pointing towards Bitcoin as world reserve currency status. And I think anything outside of Bitcoin and Ethereum investment could be quite a risk. So I don't want to take any risk at this point. Bitcoin and Ethereum, I think both seem like pretty safe plays, like seem like blue chip cryptocurrencies. But I'm pretty full transparent about being 75-80% Bitcoin allocation.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I think we see things pretty similarly, actually, which is awesome. Yeah, I initially we have a kind of similar story, because I initially was very large into Ethereum and like I would say overly diversified, like didn't really know everything that I was buying, like as much as you should when you invest in something. like I couldn't give like the full thesis like of a lot of the things that I had been buying, and then really just ended up when I dove down and learned about Bitcoin, I was like, wow, this is transformative in ways that people are not going to see for the next like 50 years even, right? Some of the things that I even might have just mentioned on this podcast, I mean, these are longer term plays and longer term predictions. And I think that it'll be interesting to see how, like, when things start playing out, looking back at some of these earlier conversations and seeing, okay, how was the thinking, what played out? And yeah, I think at the end of the day, like the most important thing is just to learn as much as you can. Like whether it's like contributing to the community or even just like going and making money. Like a lot of people, they'll listen to things like this and like want to learn how to make money. And not giving financial advice, but the one way that I would say that if you really want to learn how to make money is just go and educate yourself. Like if you know about this, you become so valuable to any company who doesn't have a background in this. So listen to the Halving Report and other shows where you can actually learn about this type of stuff, and then you'll be the expert in it because you're in so early. And then when everyone realizes that they need to know about this, you're going to be the guy that knows about it, and then you're going to be in a very good position to do very, very well. I would say the biggest thing is if you're passionate about any of the things that we spoke about on the podcast today, then follow what we're doing at Sazmining. If you want to start mining Bitcoin, you can hop onto the platform, join the wait list. There are a couple of things that that we just started doing at Sazmining that I think are interesting. One is we started doing Twitter Spaces, like weekly Twitter Spaces. So every Thursday at 3:30, we'll bring someone on. We just had one with Dennis Porter, actually.
Yeah, I actually just saw you on shortly before the podcast recording tonight. I saw you on there. I was listening in and out of it. I was on the road. I got a little bit talking about talking to your state representatives.
Yeah. I think that that's one thing that I think is going to be great to allow people to participate in the discussion. So I think that so we're going to keep doing those on Thursdays at 3:30. Also, I'm trying to get us to start like a Twitter Spaces book club. We haven't started doing it yet, but if we end up doing that, then I think that that's a fun way to just stay in touch with the community or hear what books we're reading at Sazmining. And then especially like at the end of the day, I think that a company is only as good as the people that are at that company. And so if you're super, super passionate about Bitcoin or energy or both, and you want to, apply to anything at Sazmining, any of the jobs that we have, then that would be great. Always looking to connect with top talent, and keep listening to the Halving Report.
And the Sazmining podcast. Will, I really appreciate your time. You've given my listeners and I a lot to digest, so I thank you for that. You've given us a lot of education tonight, so thanks again. I will be in touch about the release of the podcast, and hopefully we can do this again in the future.
Yeah, definitely, man. Thanks again, and you're a great host. Those were great questions, and I look forward to staying in touch and hopefully coming back on in the future.
Thank you all for listening to the Halving Report podcast. Please like and subscribe to the show. Check out the show notes below, share it with a friend, and we'll see you back next time.